Well, that was a lot better than Suicide Squad.
Do you know what a Harley Quinn is?
Bet you thought I forgot the glasses, huh? Nah, they're here. They've been here the whole time. Yes, sirree. Been here the whole time, ready to go into this review. So we have Birds of Prey, another 2020 release. Actually pretty good. Let's cut right into it. Initial impressions. A friend of mine summed it up best, I'd say. And he basically said that Birds of Prey is nothing but fun. And I'd say that's a pretty good assessment overall. It was a fun movie for sure. There was a lot of fun to be had. I laughed out loud here or there. I was in it to see how it all ended up. And yeah, I can't say this enough. It's so much better than Suicide Squad. Not to mention this one actually has an R rating, so they were able to kind of take it all the way with a bunch of the language and effects and all that. So props to them there. Before I get into the details and the nitty gritty, there was a few things from the trailers and from the movie that I did see, and I will say I like them. Harley Quinn character, Margot Robbie's portrayal, has not been as over-sexualized as it was in Suicide Squad. The way that the outfit was, the costume design, overall her position in the movie and what her like main character points were supposed to be. Like they at least came to this with a more practical take on the character. That's in the subtext of the actual it's Birds of Prey, and right below it's the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. And that's true. This is a movie about that's almost 100%, almost too much, but 100% about Harley Quinn as a character being able to come into her own and learn how to kind of try to stand on her 2 feet more and not just be synonymous with the Joker. So she's cutting ties. And in true style, that's the whole plot of the film, is that she breaks up with the Joker, and now a lot of people want her dead, and she's trying to not die. So her character is not just like a sex object to just bend over and pick stuff up or anything like that. She's her own woman, and she's trying to embrace that, and that's admirable. I like that. So to start into it, this is directed by Kathy Yan. I'm sorry. I had no idea who she was, and honestly, after looking at her filmography, it seems like she's almost a newcomer. In terms of films that she's directed, the two newest ones were Dead Pigs and According to My Mother. 2 films I've never heard of in my life, and I don't know remotely what they're about, but I would not be against looking into seeing them. But yeah, she did a good job. The film is shot much better than Suicide Squad, in my opinion. The aesthetic, the visuals, the cinematography. The whole thing is like you're in Harley Quinn's scrapbook of the story she's telling. So there's a lot of visuals on screen. There's a lot of like very Emperor's New Groove-esque where it's crossing this out, writing something here, adding on. I really like the costume design, honestly. Like the outfits that Harley wears throughout the whole movie. The outfits that the Birds of Prey she meets, their characters, what they're wearing. The villain, oh geez, the villains. Well, the main villain, I definitely love the costume design. I'll get on all that in a second. So the cast, no complaints. Just general, like surface level, no complaints. The cast all did a great job. I don't think anybody was underperforming, or there's a good cast of people, some of which I wasn't too familiar with. On the subject of cast, there's the characters. As with Suicide Squad, for one, sidebar here, it's one of the movies I regret giving a rating as high as I did. I believe I gave Suicide Squad back in the day a 3 out of 5. It's more like a 2 out of 5. It's really not a great movie. I only liked it because of the Harley Quinn character, because I thought that Margot Robbie nailed all the characters in this. They were all accurate portrayals of those characters. I still enjoy seeing Margot Robbie as the one Harley Quinn, although apparently everybody else thinks she's an asshole in this movie. I loved. Sometimes people will do a different take on a villain. As with the case of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, a lot of people will say that doesn't work. I don't know what people have said about this so far because I haven't read the reviews, but personally I love seeing Ewan McGregor as Roman Sionis, and then even seeing, what was his name again? Chris Messina. It was really interesting to see almost a more Still obviously psychotic and super creepy at times, but I liked his portrayal a lot because it was still, comparatively to comics, it was a very subdued psychotic. And I don't know, just the little mannerisms they both had. I really enjoyed watching the villains and the heroes on screen in this. So, the narrative. Again, it's a fun time, but if you really start, like, when you start digging, you notice inconsistencies, and you notice if, like a lot of like ex machinas and a lot of contrived parts of the film where it's like, you're like, oh, so this happens to line up for this, so this happens to do this, and oh, well, good thing she did that, which we didn't even see happen, so we know that she's able to do this now, and it's good enough that it holds the film together. Like, it's an overall, not like we're using like Gorilla Glue or Super Glue here, but it's like Elmer's. It's just, the narrative of Birds of Prey is the Elmer's glue of the storytelling world. It's holding everything together just enough to kind of like make a solid story, but at the same time, it could definitely have been better, deeper. People will often say the male to female ratio, both in whether it's power dynamic, script, storytelling, on-screen portrayal, is oftentimes very skewed in film and in television. And yes, it can be. In the case of Ghostbusters, I didn't enjoy that movie for a lot of reasons, but I'll say the cast was not one of them. I thought Ghostbusters, the 2016 reboot, was cast well for wanting to do an all-female adaptation. For the cast, it was great. Just the execution just was terrible. With this, again, the cast was great, but they did what Ghostbusters couldn't do, and that's they actually had the cast and made it work, and they went in the right direction in terms of the comedy and the writing and the performances and what they were trying to do. That being said, while I'm 100% down with female empowerment, they remind you very frequently that this is all about, like, being independent, being, I'm a motherfucking woman, yeah, like all that type of stuff, which is all cool. That's great. I get it. Fuck guys, right? we're not that great. I've spoke about it in my reviews before, and there's the art of something called subtlety. It's fine to have a message in your movie. It's encouraged, because some of our best movies out there have had very important messages and got them across in a very dynamic or compelling way. But when you have a movie like this, it reminds you more than just enough that that's what they're trying to get across. So just a lack of subtlety in that regard. I was down for it. Again, I'm glad that's the direction they went. There was a very clear narrative choice and character choice for Harley Quinn, where this is her breaking up from the Joker and being her own person and trying to clean up the mess that Suicide Squad left behind. They were like, yeah, no, screw him, screw all that, it's me. And Harley's like, it's me, I'm the one that should be afraid of, not that, not Mr. J. Next point, and this isn't something I've really brought up before in past movie reviews, but I really enjoyed the combat choreography in the film. It matched every character, like whether someone was more active with their fists, like Police Chief, more active with their legs, or in case of Harley Quinn, like she is... If you thought like she did a decent amount of good fighting in Suicide Squad, this pumps it up to 11. Like, watching Harley Quinn fight in this movie, especially with the whole 4D theme, but it was super entertaining because it's 100% the fighting that she does is her style. It's her wits mixed in. It's super fun and yet, like, delightfully violent in parts. And it was really entertaining to watch her fight on screen, especially whenever she incorporates stuff like bats or mallets or anything like that. She doesn't even need guns. She just absolutely wrecks people and tears through like squads of cops with just like herself, like her own two hands and whatever's lying around. That being said, a detractor from that is that there were a couple points in the movie where I'm watching those action scenes and I'm like, man, this movie keeps shifting from being a movie to being a bunch of setups for these big moments, these big set piece fight scenes, because you want them to come organically from the narrative. But when the film almost makes it kind of contrived to get to that point, it's like, yeah, I get it. It's starting to get a little bit repetitive. Birds of Prey kind of suffered a little bit in that regard. As I said, the visuals, the aesthetic, the costume design, they're all very enjoyable. They're very, very, very fitting for the movie. I have no qualms there. It was all shot well. Whenever the action happened on screen, there weren't a superfluous amount of cuts like in other movies, Six Underground. It actually showed the action. There'd be scenes where almost like, smooth, well shot. You can see what's going on. You can follow it, and yet it's still high-paced, action-filled. So props to the directing and the cinematography on that. The only thing I could really end this whole thing with is, before I get into mild spoilers, but the thing I would mainly say is I just wanted something a little bit deeper, like like Dark Knight type of level, but in the same silly style as this. Like, you watch a comedy like Jojo Rabbit or something, and then it makes you cry or it gets you emotional a couple times, and you're like, holy shit, that was out of right field. I didn't think that movie would make me feel this way. I would have liked that. If there was just, if the writing was a bit better, and if there was just a deeper sense of narrative and meaning to this film, then I think it really would have nailed it out of the park for me. But as it stands, I just felt like I was watching what I'm sure it was honestly meant to be, just like a funny, a violent little ditty, if you will. And that's okay. That's fine. It's not 100% what I was wanting, but they accomplished their mission with what they set out to do, and that's the important part. It's what matters, honestly. Bottom line is, what did MovieMan think about Birds of Prey? I'll tell you what I thought. I'd say Birds of Prey, released in 2020, is a solid, strong 3 out of 5. That's what I would give it. A nice 3 out of 5. It wasn't perfection or close to perfection. It wasn't bad either. I don't think it was bad or below average. It was just right in that, right above average, that slot of, man, that was a pretty good film. I don't think I'll buy it when it comes out on the Blu-rays, but I'm 100% down to see it again, possibly in theaters with other friends who haven't, or I would sit down for a movie night with some friends and check it out, or if it was playing on the telly, I'd watch it again. It's one of those movies. A few notes that were spoiler related. At first, I was wondering if they were going to have an obnoxious amount of Easter eggs in this movie, and it didn't seem like they did. I almost kind of wish they would have, or had more characters that were there's that character, that's my little thing. Oh, look, a little prop in the background. That being said, they could have really tried to get Jared Leto's Joker back in, and aside from some, a couple shots where you see him from behind, I admire that they didn't try to bring him back in and make him an integral part of the story. Aside from being the general catalyst that gets the movie going for Harley to want to free herself from him, overall, he wasn't in it, and I was pleasantly surprised that he wasn't. Something I did notice that I was kind of confused how I felt about it. So the movie is called Birds of Prey. It's about them as a group, I assumed, but a large majority of the movie is just Harley running into these people individually and eventually together. And it wasn't until the very, very end, the last 10, 15 minutes of the film, where the Birds of Prey actually kind of become a thing. And it's not even mentioned until the last 2 minutes that they even call it that when they are together. So I thought it was kind of interesting. It was just a mild subversion of my expectations, where I thought that they would all be together by halfway through, and they don't get together until almost the very end. So just a little side note. So I always have kind of a penchant, if you will, for villains in movies. So that's also part of the reason I really enjoyed seeing Roman Sionis and Victor Zsasz kind of doing their thing, being BFFs and stuff. It was funny and odd, and it was just really enjoying to watch. But that being said, I also don't like how people that are important characters to a film, when it comes to their deaths or death scenes, it's very unceremonious. Batman Begins with Ra's al Ghul, that's very fitting and narrative, but both narratively, action-wise, for the character, it all kind of comes to a head there. It all is yeah, that works. And then you come to a movie like Dark Knight Rises with Bane, and you're that was just very sudden, very anticlimactic, very Deus Ex Machina how it happens. And so similar to this, again, we're in spoiler talk, so warning, but Victor Zsasz just gets stabbed with some arrows a bunch of times, and maybe super dosed up, I guess, and then eventually he just dies. But it was just kind of good for them, they killed him, but I was just that's it, nothing bigger than that, I guess. And then even Roman Sionis, he just is they toss him off the pier, he's just and yeah, sure, it's quick and it works, and I guess it makes sense, but even the moments leading up to it, I just wasn't, I don't know, I was disappointed. So it all works, but again, I thought it was kind of, their deaths were unceremonious and anticlimactic. I wish it was a bit more serious, because, and I could tell there are moments where they did try to make things a bit more serious and try to have these dramatic beats, but they just missed the mark for me. This movie was too kind of fast and loose for me to really get emotionally invested. So when these moments did occur, they didn't hit nearly as hard as some emotional moments in other movies that would have a kind of better balance there. So it was a bit lacking. Overall, Birds of Prey is a fun time. I'd say it's worth a shot in theaters. Sure, I'd say go see it now if you're into that type of stuff. If you're into like anti-hero movies, or if you love Harley Quinn, you're definitely going to love this movie. I am not a huge like mega Harley Quinn fan. I did enjoy the movie overall. I had a good time with it. Again, it was nothing but fun. What do you think about it? Did you love Birds of Prey? Did you hate Birds of Prey? Do you disagree with me? Do you agree? Whatever it is, just type something on down there. In the meantime, thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next movie review that I do, or episode of whatever I do. But yeah, subscribe here for more content, updates, and the like, or check out the playlist I have of all the movie reviews that I have done. Get any suggestions for me? Throw them out. I'll hit them up as I make my way through this challenge for 2020. So thank you guys and gals so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next movie review that I do, or whatever. Yeah. Goodbye, travelers.